thing. What I gotta do? Okay, stop that background noise. Yeah, it is an exciting day. I've been anxious all day about it. Um, yeah, got a couple concerns, but overall excited. Okay, let me get my life together. Since I know you can hear me, you might as well be able to see me too. Let me go through and leave. I appreciate you being here for this celebration. It's a celebration. Please tell me. For real, I think one of the better purchases I have made for the show is this new soundboard mic combo. Because I was just getting ready to tell you to tell me um, if the if you can hear me, but I recognize we haven't really had any sound issues per se since we upgraded and changed the game a little bit. So I'm crunk about that. So I'm assuming you can hear me. So no need for me to tell you. You can hear me. I know, right? Jesus Christ, ain't that a good come up? Back we was doing bad before. I remember when we first started, man. Sometimes it sounded like I was talking in a tin can. It'd be so bad. But I appreciate you sticking through it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think really outside of you asking Liberty, that is one of the reasons I decided to do this unveiling with the family is because realistically, man, we've been doing this all together. So I value that. You know what I mean? And, we've taken time and made sure we see the growth and acknowledge the growth. And I don't know, I think it'd just be good to. I was too. Outside of overstimulated, I was embarrassed. That thing used to be so embarrassing, man. Especially with the echoes and the goddamn. Oh my god. Oh my god. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because the equipment has gotten better, or I gotten better, or it's just a combination of both. I'm gonna lean more toward the combination of both. I feel like I've gotten better. I do know for a fact the equipment has gotten better because I've paid for it, but I think it's all a huge combination of all of those things. All right, family. So we can get this party started. I'm so glad to be back. So glad to be back with you for another episode of Soul Swami Live. Um, so y'all, what we do here is discuss all things healing in various forms, whether it be through homework, um, live energy readings. It's what do we do? Even activities that we did. Like last week, we did a trait map, which was fun. Well, we started the trait map. Why do we do this? For the most part, is to create a space that we have a group of people that creates a collective energy of growth, healing, and development. It's a supportive system, an energy for vulnerability, and an energy for safety. And together, we create that space. You can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday, except for holidays and sometimes when I travel. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, TikTok, not TikTok Scratch, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. TikTok be so random. So, and every time I go live on TikTok, I want to add them, but generally every time I go live on TikTok, we wind up getting banned, and why that happens, right? So generally at the beginning of every show, we do some energy work. So we work on a specific energy point, and this week we are starting back over with the crown. Hence the so if you are into okay, excuse me. The crown is good for your community. What is that? Your consciousness, your spiritual connection, and your sacred knowledge. That tapping into the universal knowledge that's just there, where you just kind of know and don't understand how you know. If you're into color therapy, you want to think violet, purple. That is the color for your crown, hence the light. So if you're in the light therapy, spend a little time in some purple lighting. That is good for that. If you are into aromatherapy, you want to think frankincense, sandalwood, lavender, myrrh, rosewood. All those are good for your crown. And if you are into crystals or gemstones, you want to think selenite. As a matter of fact, that's funny. No, I don't have this. I don't have that. You want to think amethyst, moonstone. I like moonstone, so I think I'm going to have to get that. I don't know. I need to move beyond my crown. I get so much amethyst. Diamond and clear quartz are fantastic for your crown. Next, we do a little sound there. Let me cut this off before we be hearing all this in the background. In the background. We also do a little sound therapy. And Liberty, I ain't want to get this week. So we doing the bowl as always. But I also brought the rain stick because I didn't want if you don't know, sometimes we have some younger guests that view our shows. And, you know, they are they don't always know what they're not supposed to say. So they give you truthful feedback. And one of our young guests said that they are tired of the bowls. So anything except the bowls. So I thought about them. I was going to do the purple drum because we were on the drum, but I brought the rain stick for. So hopefully this time we won't get yelled at for just doing the bowl. But during this time, you just allow yourself to listen to the sound and relax and calm your spirit. If you can, be in a sitting position. Communication must be fantastic right now because the bowl is loud. So I hope everybody's finding a space to be able to communicate clearly for themselves and comfortably and confidently and all of those leads that you need. Yeah, family, I just didn't have time for what is it, a 6-year-old to be checking me again. You know what? I low-key want you to ask her. What's her issue with the bowl? All right, make sure if you're in there, leave a comment. It's too loud. I noticed that. You know what? I always wonder that too. One time, Toddy told me that she was in the grocery store and some man heard it and followed her around. So, thank you. That's fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. I know that was loud. See, I knew she had a reason, and that bowl can get loud. It did. It was extra loud today. That is why I said communication, because this set up to the throat. And when it's that loud, that easy, I feel like communication energy is healthy. You know what I mean? It's banging loud. So people are saying things, at least thinking about things, trying to find ways to communicate their greatness. So that is how you can tell the difference of the energy, the collective energy, not just my necessarily energy, but the collective energy. Because some days it is extra loud and some days it's not too loud. But today is the day that it was extra loud, which is why I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Tell her, I'll tell you this, you might have to monitor her because her gift might be hearing. Some people got sight, some people got sound. And that's my gift. I get a lot of messages through the wind, whether it be through the breath that we speak or the wind in the air. I just listen for changes and subtleties and things like that. So that might be a gift in watching it. While you think about it, family, if you dare, make sure you leave a comment so I can give you some love. We're going to do breath exercises. I would like for you to all pick. So we have triangle breathing. We have box breathing. Triangle breathing is 3-3-3. Box breathing is 4-4-4. We also have 3-6-9 and 4-7-8. So family, which one would you like to pick? As a matter of fact, Liberty, which one do you want to do? That's your baby. Because I know you be in there making her do breath exercises with us too. I know that's right. Hello. So, she is definitely playing your extra set of ears, family. You can see it. 4-7-8. I was thinking that too. That's what I was feeling. All right, family. So for the 4-7-8 breathing exercise, all you have to do is just listen to the sound of my voice and focus on your breathing and clearing your energy, and I will keep the count. That is a count where we breathe in for a 4 count, we hold for a 7 count, and then we release for an 8 count. But again, like I said, all you have to do is just focus on your thoughts. Clearing your thoughts, giving yourself confident thoughts, making sure that the stories that you're telling your ones are good ones and conducive to your growing, and you release some of those negative thoughts and things that you have. But just focusing on your breathing and listening to the sound of my voice. On the count of 3, we will start. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, Sherry. Perfect time for you to join. I got an unveiling tonight that I'm so excited about. So you must, Sherry, I ain't gonna lie, girl. You always gonna be my love bug, and we spiritually connected. So I'm sure your spirit was like, I feel like I need to get on his show today. And it was perfect. I'm just letting you know. So you're going to see something that I'm happy of. I don't know if the product is going to be great, but I'm excited about it. All right. So as you relax from that breathing exercise, I want you to take a little time and repeat these affirmations after me. I am divine. I am connected to the universe. I am at peace. I am a spiritual being. I release doubt and welcome faith. Again, I am divine. I am connected to the universe. I am at peace. And I am a spiritual being. And I release doubt and welcome faith. All right, let's get this party started. Where we at? No. All right, people. So we're gonna get started we continue our discussion on personal identity. Last week we talked a little bit about how memory affects personal identity. This week we're going to go a little bit deeper into how selective memory affects our personal identity. So one thing I kind of generally start off every show with a little brief general discussion. And I kind of want to say something. I don't know, my homeboy probably listening to it now, but I need to talk to him. So over the holiday, generally every Thanksgiving I make sweet potato pies. And I try to pass them out to as many people as I can, and family and friends or whatever. But generally every year, people close to me can pretty much count on the opportunity to get a sweet potato pie. So I got a friend that I've grown up with forever. You know what I mean? I actually talked about being a part of his haircutting ceremony and a bunch of different ways. You know what I mean? We've talked about it. But he came to pick up his pie. And, of course, he knows the pies are amazing. Not to toot my own horn. They are. They'll beat anybody's, especially Liberty's. Beat Liberty's pies all day long. But he came to get the pie. And he cut him a piece. And he took that first bite. And I seen him just sink into that space of bliss and comfort, like, oh man. And there was another look on his face that I didn't recognize. And this dude says to me, he was like, man, I appreciate your consistency. And that was such a unique compliment because in my life, I generally don't get that compliment, right? So when he said it to me, I ain't even quite know how to accept it. I was like, yeah, appreciate it. But I ain't really know how to spiritually receive a compliment like that I've never really got as a compliment and always had conflicting thoughts as it relates to consistency. I've said on the show a bunch of times, consistency generally is when people judge someone else's consistency, they generally mean moving in a fashion that they want you to move, right? And I've even talked about how being consistently inconsistent creates a consistency, right? And I've had people interact with me and question my consistency and things like that on various levels. So getting that as a compliment was somewhat of a renewing of my spirit, right? Because I always thought that I was consistent, right? I think I'm one of those people that is inconsistently consistent, right? And even in some of the people that don't always see my consistency, I always found it ironic because in that in that consistency, in that inconsistency, they themselves can pick out a consistency. Most of the people that I interact with, they have some guesses on how I might respond, how I might react, how I might feel. And the only way for them to be able to come up with these ideas is because they've had previous experiences with me, and that was the outcome. So in that, they've been able to recognize a consistency in my behavior, right? So for me, I always thought like, well, maybe they're projecting their inconsistency or their idea of consistency on me, but it's always created this conflict. But it was very good for someone that has known me for a minute to compliment me on my consistency, because one thing I am is a very consistent person. Once you get to know me, you can really guess how I'm going to respond 99% of the time. So I appreciate that. Even though it was something simple as a sweet potato pie. But if you make pies and desserts, you know how difficult consistency can be. Having them taste the same or better. You know what I mean? One of the reasons I didn't go back to the purple sweet potatoes is because I couldn't get a consistent flavor out of them. And I kept tasting the purple. But that was a major compliment. I wanted to share that with y'all because it was big in my life. Now, next, family. Boop, boop, boop. It says Amazon in there. I need to hide that. Boop, boop, boop. I'm excited because this is the first printed copy of The 7 Spaces of Healing by Swami. And I'm anxious about it because when I was uploading the cover picture, and they did it. Listen, I knew something was wrong because as a matter of fact, when I was uploading the cover picture, they kept showing the cover like this big and all this white space all around it. Right? So I was like, something has to be wrong. Right? So I put it up there, I uploaded it. They talk about make sure the barcode isn't over any wording. And I was like, ain't nothing touching it. Right? But I was hoping that when they print it they planned on expanding, spreading the picture, and I couldn't see anything, right? But family, this is the first printed copy of The 7 Spaces of Healing. And if you can look closely, that is what the cover is going to look like. But you see what I mean? When I uploaded it, it was all that white space. So they printed it with all that white space. As a matter of fact, I'm excited because this really does show growth, right? And it also shows what we kind of talked about months ago when it came to us reading The Alchemist. And that story where he went to the gypsy and had the gypsy to help him decipher his dreams. And he asked that gypsy, if you have the ability to decipher dreams, then why aren't you rich? And her response was, I have the ability to understand dreams, but I don't have the ability to bring these dreams to life, right? This is evidence that us as a family, not only are we dreamers, but we do have that ability to bring our dreams to life, right? And this is evidence of it because we talked about 7 Spaces of Healing. It was one of our early shows, and we talked about it for a minute. And I'm crunk. We did some work. Like I said, I help you when you see it. That's what the book cover is going to look like. So I'm going to adjust it, and it will be out soon this week. We show you some pages. It looks it's a surreal moment. It's a real moment. Table of contents. We gave a shout out. I'm so crook about it. And you know we definitely going to read it for book club. So pretty soon you'll be able to buy the 7 Spaces of Healing to help you in your own journey. And once I post them on Amazon, I'll make sure everybody get the opportunity to order from Amazon. Or, you know me, I'm very good at moving product. So I will be taking on Master P's paradigm, and we're going to be banging them out the trunk. Hey, listen, that's the surreal thing about it, right? Because it's official. Like, for my thesis, I technically got published for the article that I did for my thesis, but I don't never really count that. That's why I don't ever talk about it, right? But this is realistic, right? And it's coming from the space that I was a person that never, I'm not gonna write no book. I didn't have the whatever's needed, the correct tools, but it wasn't something that I thought I was going to do. So not only have we brought dreams to life, we saw how our identity can adjust, because I never saw myself as an author. But now I have to do that, right? So we've been able to talk about how identity has adjusted, how our view of self has adjusted, and how those adjustments brought new things into our lives that we never even thought that we would have, right? So that shows as evidence. It is cream pages with black writing, and it is surreal. Hey. This is surreal, family. All right, so now we can get started with our show. Woo! I'm calm down. I'm gonna sit here and probably try to read my book. All right, last week, let's review. Last week we did a little work on personality traits and how they affect our shaping and development of our personal identity. We did that by doing a personality trait map, in which we wound up doing the categories of our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. And then with each category, we started identifying traits that support that category. And then after we identified the traits, we drew the correct connection on how that trait influences our identity. So like if we thought we were an empath in our emotional or spiritual thing, then we may identify as a healer. Right? So it brings us here. Listen, honestly, I'm extremely I appreciate that. And as you can tell, receiving compliments and something like that are things I still kind of work on. I'm still a little weird like that, right? Because even when I saw that the Soul family is extremely proud of you, my initial response was to devalue that and share it with everyone. And even though I have good intentions, right, those good intentions sometimes keep me in a box that doesn't allow me to grow the way I need to. So that's why I caught myself and paused and received that, right? And outside of receiving that and giving thanks that the Soul family is proud of me, I definitely have to say that I appreciate the support that I've gotten from the Soul family. Some of you all have been here from day one. and other people don't always understand some of the connections. Some of you, we have been through interesting things together that already gave us connection. And I'm not even going to lie, without the support and the energy that we have created together, I don't think a lot of this would have been possible. So, as much as you all are proud of me, I definitely have to extend gratitude and thanks to the support. I'm talking about doing the Reikis with me when I just got it. Like, some people just know me as Peanut. And going from Peanut to Soul Swami was a huge flipping identity for a lot of people. So I'm got plenty of gratitude, and I'm thankful for those people who took chances on me with the Reiki. I'm thankful for the people who took chances with me with the energy reading. They whether they understand it or not, that is belief in my skills and ability, because people take their chances even if they didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean? So thank you, family. All right, so outside of the personality trait map that we did, last thing, I do plan on putting that book in a frame and hanging it on the wall. I recognize that this is something to celebrate, right? And I'm such a nostalgic person that now in my life, I want to make sure I honor that piece of myself, right? So like I talk about with my college degrees, I got several, and if listen, if you ain't look at my resume or just make the assumption, you would not know that I have several degrees, because I don't even know where it is, right? So now I want to make sure I'm in a space to be able to honor how nostalgic I am, and things like that matter. So outside of just taking pictures and that become my art, the books that we create together will also be my art, right? Next thing, we talked about what role that memory plays in our identity. Memory helps us to recall the past. That's what memory does for us in shaping our identity. It is the foundation of self-continuity. When we have an idea or we identify as something, the memory helps us recall events and experiences that help support that identity. Memory helps us create a cohesive narrative, right? That cohesive narrative is the story of our life. Me being able to tell you I wasn't born in the United States, I'm a military baby, all that stuff is memory. But it helps to form a cohesive story of how I got here, right? That's what it is, the narrative of your life. Your memory shapes your values and beliefs. Your experience shapes what you think is possible. And you bring it up when you recall your memories. Memory is selective. We remember pieces and not always the whole thing, right? And memory is fantastic for reflective practice, to reflect on and to shape new identities and to evolve over time, right? So this week we're going to go a little bit deeper into selective memory, right? One of the reasons I want to do this is to be able to begin to recognize how memory is a tool for insight and evolution. You get me? So memory is a tool for insight and evolution if we use it correctly, right? So selective memory. What is selective memory? This was the reason I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this, is because how we use the tool of memory is important. Like I said, how we recalling, how do we remember things, how we recover what was lost or we blocked out of our memories, and how we shape and reshape those memories. That is selective memory as a whole. I thank you for that. Um, I think willingness to honor myself has been shaped and developed with you all, right? As we do this work, one thing I profess to people all the time is learn to honor yourself. Whether you honor your spirit, or I ask you, like, how do you honor those emotions? How do you honor your spirit? How do you honor that? So, in recognizing that, I had to get more comfortable with honoring some of the things I know about myself. You know what I mean? And in honoring that, creating the space to be able to receive new and more things, right? And you know, like I know, honoring myself has been kind of in a box, but it's been easier than others honoring me. So this is a new experience for me, right? We're going to do a my man with the consistency compliment. He definitely talked me into doing some sort of event or something for the soul family to be able to honor all the work we done and to celebrate. So those are my celebrating myself and honoring myself have been two very difficult things for me to do. And it's been a slow process, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to do some of this honoring of myself and to also be a model of what that looks like as you're healing, as you grow, and as you evolve. We all need models of what that look like, and that is one of the reasons why I try to be as vulnerable and as open as possible so that we all can see that we're in this ship, we're in this boat together. You know what I mean? Even though I may be the one that's guiding, there is so much the learning is an even exchange. It is an ebb and flow. There's so much that I learn about myself by learning about y'all and vice versa, right? So, yeah, thank you again for that. I appreciate that. So, again, what is selective memory? Selective memory is the tendency to remember certain experiences, remember or forget certain experiences more vividly or frequently than others, and is often based off the emotional impact of those, the emotional impact, personal relevance, or unconscious bias, right? Unconscious bias is one that I show up that I've been seeing a lot, especially after that article came out. And unconscious bias is saying that men are embarrassing or women are embarrassing. That is a unconscious bias that you brought into consciousness. And the reason why it's still an unconscious bias is because you haven't done the work to really assess what you're saying or what that means in your life. And what I mean by what that means in your life, what those thoughts are creating as your reality, right? Because you remember, your reality is created by your thoughts. What you see, your experiences, the energy will support your thoughts, right? So, now, how does selective memory shape? I wrote that down. How does it shape identity? So, one is by the emotional significance, right? Again, we tend to remember or forget emotionally charged event, and that emotionally charged does not just mean positive. It can be joyous moments, painful moments, or even transformative moments, such as this book. Transformative moments. It is the emotional significance of it. For example, a moment of triumph we might recall as a moment of triumph winds up shaping our thoughts and ideas around strength. Or if we have a moment of rejection, experiencing those rejections once, twice, several times, however many times, it shapes our ideas on vulnerability. As when I said about that statement of men are embarrassing, women are embarrassing. We don't recognize how our experienced rejection, our negative experiences, the selective memory that we decide to hold on to with that gender, shapes our ideas on how we view that gender. So that rejection shapes how we feel about vulnerability. So if you're curious about vulnerability, use that memory and recall the moments of rejection, right? And I say this because a lot of us have shaped our identity on negative experiences. And that's a very, very, very dangerous thing to do. Because how do you get positive experiences if the foundation of your thought is negative? You don't. You get negative experiences, right? So, recognizing how those moments shape your ideas and relationship with these words that we look to. Something important that I wrote down and I want to make sure I say. Emotionally significant memories become our identity anchor. Emotionally significant memories become our identity anchor, right? And that is the pillars of who we are. So if we are designing or shaping our identity around negative experiences, those negative experiences, that negative identity becomes an anchor in our persona that may block some of the opposing thoughts, ideas, and energies that we need to receive to help us grow. So this is important while we're talking about selective memory, because those memories are so charged with emotion because they are emotionally significant. But then we also have to recognize how those memories wind up creating the anchors of our life, right? Next, selective memory helps to shape your self-consistency, right? That we recall memories that support our thoughts and ideas. We don't really start thinking about, we will brush away memories that disprove what we want to hold on to, especially when it's becoming an identity anchor. It is harder to pull that anchor up. So we are more likely to recall memories that support. So if we don't think it's valuable to be vulnerable, we will recall all the memories that support us not being vulnerable. And we have the tendency to brush aside the memories where our vulnerability was successful for us, right? Can you start to see how dangerous that can be? Right. So, for example, let's say you see yourself as a leader. If you see yourself as a leader, when it comes to self-consistency, you'll probably start thinking about memories in which you were in a position to lead. I think about that all the time. That's how I can be confident in my leadership abilities, and that's how I'm able to identify that I am a servant leader, right? Is because I recall memories that support that identity, right? Now, trust and believe, there are memories that exist where I was not a servant leader. But since they don't support my identity, I don't have a tendency to recall those memories as quickly as I recall the memories that support myself. Or if you see yourself as a healer, you wind up recalling moments of deep empathy, deep emotional moments. It's easy for you to recall times where it brought out tearful feelings or frustration or things like that. So those are moments that allow you to connect with someone else's feelings, emotions, and experiences. It helps you to maintain a coherent and stable sense of self. That is what selective memory does. It helps you do that. Next, selective memory helps you make meaning. It helps to construct a meaningful life story. The events of your life that you want to keep or even let go, because the body is an amazing thing, especially as the mind function, how it chooses what to block out and what to keep, right? But it winds up creating somewhat of a highlight of your memories that show your growth, your purpose, and your transformations. As we just talked about the beginning of the show, right? We discussed on how when we first started this show, we were sitting at a white folding table and an ottoman. The sound, all we had was a dream and a willingness to invest emotion, time, and money into that dream, right? We talked about how bad the sound quality used to be. It used to sound like I was in a tin can. People used to be like, oh my God, I had so much help from so many random people. But now we really don't have sound issues. That winds up make meaning. It helps us control. That's a meaningful story. It shows the growth, the purpose, and the transformation of the show. Oh man. Time is rolling. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Also, selective memory creates a space for us to reinterpret life events so that they align with your current values, right? So as you grow and you shape, you're supposed to recall some of these life events and reshape your interpretation of these life events to shape who you are. So one thing that I've talked about a bunch of times is how when I was a kid, I was put on punishment for a year and a half. And that 12-year-old, 11-year-old me sees that moment very different than the 20-year-old me. As a matter of fact, the difference has changed tremendously since I've started taking steps to heal myself in ways that I didn't know I needed to be healed, right? So now when I look at these events, I can apply a new level of understanding because now I've equipped myself with more tools to be able to navigate these memories in a healthy way, right? And all of this is important, especially when we are working on our spiritual body, reshaping our thoughts and ideas around these memories are important to our spiritual body because of the reflective practice that it causes, right? Next, selective memory is identity reinforcement. The more you revisit certain parts and memories, the more they reinforce your identity. Like when people say they are honest people, we think about all the times that we were honest. Now, sometimes we may have to reshape what that word honesty means in our relationship with with honesty. But once we identify that and we reshape that, we are more likely to bring up memories that support that. So it reinforces. This is why I said your thoughts. The universe has no obligation to prove you wrong. It does have a tendency to prove you right. Your thoughts become your reality. So telling stories wind up solidifying those memories, and sharing them helps to shape your social identity. How people see you in social environments. Do they see you as a vulnerable person? Do they see you as an honest person? Because there's how we see ourselves, and then how we present ourselves, which can be very different. As some people see themselves as very kind, and because of that, they don't present themselves like that because they have a concern or a fear that that kindness may be used against them, right? Next. Okay, cool. We almost done. Fantastical. All right. Next, selective memory has a tendency to have memory bias and distortion. Selective memory can distort your identity. Again, if we are building our identity on the negative experience we have a distorted sense of identity. You hear me? So if you start thinking about what you identify, if you're not being vulnerable, if you're not leading with your heart, make sure you haven't built your relationship with vulnerability, heart, and love on negative experiences. All right. So now, how it does that? One way that we wind up using selective memory to distort our image is just an example I gave. You might have the tendency to overemphasize your failures and underplay your successes. I wrote a specific note beside this because, as we talked about earlier, this is the issue that I wind up having that makes me struggle to accept celebration and honor from other people. Is this right here. My selective memory has somewhat distorted my identity because I overemphasize. I have the tendency, although I may not vocally tell everybody about my failures because I'm a private person, I have the personal tendency, the internal tendency to focus wholly on my failures and brush aside my successes. I've been successful in a lot of things, but I've never created a space for me to be able to celebrate that. But when I make a mistake, I make all the room in the world to relive that mistake over and over. And that winds up distorting my identity because now I'm failure focused. And the things that are meant to build my spirit, my emotions, my mental, I do not use them the way I need to. Next, we wind up having the tendency to forget moments that challenge our self-identity. I put this around from parents because many of us in our process of healing, one of the main things we have to do is heal our relationship with our parents. As a matter of fact, we have to make space for us to be able to acknowledge all the various feelings that we may have about our relationship with our parents. But one that winds up happening is when we wind up trying to have a conversation with our parents, and sometimes they have no recollection of what we are talking about. We can talk to our parents about the time. You remember that time you chased me down the hall and whooped me with a belt, and that parent would look at you and be like, I never did that. Their selective memory has distorted their identity. They have forgotten anything that challenges that identity. So if they see themselves as a good parent, trust and believe they forgot all of the questionable things that they have done that might challenge that idea of good parent, right? And I say this to you so that when we have these conversations, we also can apply this understanding and we can hold space for that type of dynamic. Now, that we talked about how it affects, one question that we might ask is, can selective memory be reframed? Yes, it can. It can be reframed through reflection. As we get new tools, we go back and reflect on those old experiences, those old ideas, and reshape them to see if they align with who we are today. It can help through therapy. As I talked about, therapy creates a space. If you think about therapists on the couch, social therapists, they create a space for you to be able to discuss your experiences, feelings, and emotions. And a good therapist will give you tools to help you cope with those feelings, experiences, and emotions, right? That helps you reframe that selective memory and or spiritual practice. The things you do to honor your spirit, the way you shape and love yourself, the way you acknowledge your connection to everything around you or things above you, right? Through the spiritual practice, this is what we do with Soul Swami Live. It is a spiritual practice. Although this may not be church, church is not the only, religion is not the only way that you can honor your spirit. So we created space for us to be able to honor our spiritual growth by even having conversations about how do we honor our spirit, obtaining tools to help our spiritual growth. That's what we created here. Okay, so another way that we can reframe these selective memories is by revisiting forgotten or suppressed memories, right? Now, when we're trying to remember things that we forgot or we have suppressed, that's where reflection winds up coming in. That's where therapy, that's why spiritual practice, this is where we wind up needing help of someone else. Because if we block them out, how are we going to recover them? So someone else has to help us with that process. Someone that you trust, someone that you can rely on and be vulnerable with and you feel safe with, or even if you don't necessarily feel safe with them initially, you're working towards that safety net that you need to feel, right? And one of the more shocking things for me is how amazing that the mind is and how many things that we suppress to help us function with our identity. One of the most traumatic stories I told you all about that I had totally forgot was the passing of my grandma. In my recollection of that story, my grandma died the day I moved to North Carolina. The end. Which is traumatic enough. Right? Spent my whole summer with her, and the day I was supposed to leave, she passed. Right? That was traumatic enough. But I had totally forgot about that I was the one who found her body first. That was a whole new level of trauma that was so impactful that my selective memory suppressed it. Right? So I needed to acknowledge and navigate those emotions that came with that event. So through a conversation with my mother, she helped me recall that because she was the one that told me reminded me. And once that wall was broken, all those feelings, thoughts, all of that stuff came rushing out, which is fantastic because now we're in a space to be able to navigate those emotions. When I was 12, 11, I didn't have a tool to navigate these emotions. And I was in a family that didn't really have the tools to navigate those emotions. The tool that we have was to move forward. Life goes on, which is a very good tool and a tool that you're going to need, but it isn't a tool that allows you to address the feelings and emotions that you deal with from these events. It just allows you to move forward as if that didn't happen. The other way that we do this is the other way that we reframe our selective memory is by reframing personal memories as a source of strength. And this is a new one for me, not necessarily a new one for me, because it's changed in how I navigate this, right? Because before you tell me I couldn't, that's all I needed, just to prove you wrong, right? So when it came, the painful memory is someone telling me I can't do. I think about that. And that became my source of strength, right? But now I don't want to get my source of strength from external factors. They may influence my strength, but I don't want that to be the source of my strength. So now I have to go into these memories and reframe the ideas. So like when I think about that 1.5 year punishment, I don't just focus on the pain, right? Now I understand what will make a parent do that. I was living in a very dangerous neighborhood. And when I said dangerous, I mean beyond dangerous, where children were getting violently hurt. My brother got stabbed, my cousin got shot. It was a dangerous neighborhood. And the only way that a parent could really protect their child from the dangers of the neighborhood is to keep them in the house, which winds up being its own set of issues. But now when I think about that painful memory, it allows me to reframe it in a space of understanding where the pain doesn't hurt so much. Because I do understand. I know where I was living. It was dangerous. I understand as a parent, they ain't know what to do. What do? You can't move. You can't stop the violence. So what do you do? So some of us was locked up. I remember I had another friend who be locked up all the time too. As a matter of fact, because his parents came from the Caribbean, they sent him to the Caribbean because they thought that might be safe. That's how dangerous the neighborhood was. But we wind up reframing that selective memory by taking time and reframing the painful memories as a source of strength. And I witnessed this with Catastic. I was on a panel the other day, and the question was, is there any event that you wouldn't experience again? You know what I mean? And everybody on the panel was like, they would experience it again because it all made them who they are today. Source of strength. And it's ironic, I used to say that. But when they asked me today, I definitely thought of a time that I'm like, I definitely could have done whatever skills I was supposed to learn from that 1.5 year punishment, I didn't learn. And what I did learn, I could have learned somewhere else, right? So it was amazing to be a part of a group of people who already understood that reframing, revisiting these painful memories and creating and having them be a source of strength. And that specifically is checking out your relationship and your idea of strength. Because strength does not mean closed off, walled up. It means you have the energy to be able to make a difference for yourself or others, right? The next way that we can reframe our selective memory is through integrating new experiences that help to shape our identity, right? So as a kid, I was always kind of good with my hands, but now doing Reiki is an example of integrating new experiences that reshape my identity. So now when I tell people that I'm a healer, I confidently do that because I've integrated new experiences that help support and reinforce that identity, right? Now, the last thing I want to say is why this is important is because a huge part of personal growth is identity transformation, right? So we have to understand what identity is, how it's shaped, what shapes it, so we'll have the tools to reshape and refine our own personal identities. Okay, Liberty. I don't know if you're still here, but I hope you are. You know what's funny? As much as I talked about not writing, there are sketches and doodles and things that I have around that would be like that. So Liberty says those she has a group of poems. I appreciate you because I know we got another thing going on TikTok, so we're going to wrap it up. A book of poems that winds up reminding of a lot of suppressed memories. And when I start reading through some of the past letters, I'm a love letter type of dude. I mean, listen, when I say a love letter type of dude, I mean, I've had girlfriends that we bought a journal specifically for us, and we'd write letters back and forth. This is why I always am careful about putting so much emphasis on spoken communication. I need to talk on the phone. We need to talk about it. I just think we need to communicate. Now, I don't care how you communicate it. Just communicate it to me. So, spoken communication has value. Written communication has value. And body language, nonverbal communication has value. Period. So, those sketchings and love notes and all those things like that brings up all types of memories. It brings up when we were in love, and I can literally see how we fall out of love. It's great. Or when I look at some of the memories, I still have notes from when I was in middle school, when you had to fold it over and put the little triangle and pull out the little tick, the little bloop, to unfold the note. I still have those things. So I can imagine how if you kept any type of written record of your experiences, how they can bring up so many feelings and thoughts that you have suppressed. I think that is fantastic. That is as a matter of fact, as we talked about it in the show, that is revisiting these memories. And if you wrote about them, they are definitely memories. All right, family. So again, we didn't have the book club this Thursday. Time traveling. Listen, that is fantastic. That's exactly what it is. People say time traveling ain't real, but it is. We do it all the time with our memories. Soon, some memories are so emotionally impactful that when we think about them, it's almost like being right there. We can smell the smells, hear the sounds, all the emotions that we felt well back up. The difference is now we understand that feelings are the tools to navigate our emotions. And we recognize that feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves. So now that we recognize that feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves and they are the tools to navigate our emotions, when we travel, when we time travel, we now have the proper equipment to create new stories, right? So our time travel is real. You do it all the time with memory. It is a perfect form, perfect form of time travel. So next week we will talk about how identity evolves over time. Depending on how much that is, we might get into a little bit on how do we separate our old identity. But I think that's going to be a episode for itself. So next week we'll talk about how identity evolves over time. Thursday night we'll continue reading Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Cosby. If you can't make it Thursday, I hope to see you back here Tuesday for another episode of Soul Swami Live. If you have some time, it started at 8, but I'm sure she'd be thankful that you joined. Make sure you show our soul family some love on TikTok. Cat's Kitchen. I feel you. I'm glad you recognize that. I think that is going to be a lot to be able to discuss, so it definitely needs to be its own episode. Yeah, like I was saying, if you got TikTok, follow the Soul Family Cat's Kitchen, and she's doing the verses tonight, so y'all can enjoy some of that. If you a verses type of person, or if you even want to sign up, then you be the person that select the songs for the artist. She's open to that as well. But support the family. Again, I thank you for all your support. We've gotten a long way, family. And I can't wait till the whole book is green, but you see where we going. All right, now. Love, gratitude, healing, all those amazing things, family. I thank you again, and I will see you next week. Peace, family.